The days of us sneaking up, wearing balaclavas and moving like real quietly and all that type of stuff.
We don't use those at all.
Think the movie Heat with Al Pacino. That's kind of what we're up against these days. It literally started with the Waco incident because they needed some type of TEMS system, and that was back in the late 90s before anyone was even talking about TEMS.
What does SWAT stand for? What does SWAT represent, especially in a police department? What's its role? Why is it there?
Easy. One question at a time. Obviously, she has a lot of questions. SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. That actually comes from the simple fact of why SWAT was designed. There were certain incidents happening not only in the United States, but around the world, and law enforcement needed to have specialized teams to handle these incidents. So with that, special weapons, because the weapons that SWAT utilizes are special. Well, they used to be. A lot of the weapons that SWAT has today, well, as you know, Patrol actually has now. But back in the day when I first started, only SWAT had these tools. And then tactics. Well, there had to be special tactics to handle special situations. Sometimes the situations that Patrol was on, as you know, all the resources for patrol officers were utilized and they still needed more tactics. So that's where these special weapons and tactics come into place. Not only just in the state of California, but across the United States, we come together and we put a lot of lessons learned to develop new strategies on how we can handle different incidents, especially these days where it seems that there is a lot more violence in the United States and SWAT teams are being utilized more and more than ever before.
Well, that's a pretty long answer.
My daughter, this is what I get to deal with.
Every day. So my next question for you would be then, since you were on SWAT for so long and you were a SWAT commander, what was one of the reasons why you wanted to be on the SWAT team?
I don't know if you know this, but I started on the SWAT team back when I was a paramedic, and this was back in 1995-96. What ended up happening was there was an incident in Waco, Texas, and the federal government was going to take down David Koresh. That was probably one of the biggest tactical blunders I had ever seen because so many agents shot and killed and wounded. Don't know how many people from the Branch Davidians actually died, but I know David Koresh was killed in that shooting. Some of the officers bled to death during that incident. I was working in the city where we ended up becoming police officers, and I contacted the SWAT commander at the time, and I said, hey, you need a paramedic on your team because if you guys get injured or hurt, you don't have anyone that's going to be able to help you out. So that's actually where it came from. And then I ended up working or getting hired at that same particular police department. And then after I passed probation, they offered me the SWAT medic position, which they had never had before. And I became the SWAT medic. I became a operator, and then the assistant team leader, and then eventually the commander. But it literally started with the Waco incident because they needed some type of TEMS system, and that was back in the late 90s before anyone was even talking about TEMS.
Can you talk about those assignments and explain what each of them is in their roles?
Police departments work because there are different facets to the police department. You have patrol services, what you do. You have investigative services, those are the detectives. A SWAT team is very similar because we have different positions within the SWAT team, and this actually helps us to accomplish our mission because you have officers who specialize in something particular about a SWAT team. So an operator is the actual team member that will make entry into the incident. Actually going into the house, it could be on the perimeter of the house. The breacher is responsible for getting us to the location. That could include breaching a gate, breaching a door, breaching a rear door, whatever that may take. It's the breacher's responsibility to get us through that, and that's why they go to breacher school, to learn the various different techniques. Many of you that play tactical games such as Ready or Not or SWAT 4 know about that tactical shotgun. You hit the hinges, the lock, the door comes down. They also use torches, they use depth cord, all various different ways to get us into the actual location. When SWAT gets activated, we just don't roll in. We go to a command post. the team leader, the assistant team leader, and the commander, we sit there and we discuss the situation with patrol and what is happening, who's the suspects, what type of weapons we have, what kind of crimes we have, and then we start working our way from the perimeter into the actual incident, while the scouts will be working their way around the location, letting us know of the various different things they scouted out, and they bring back that intelligence so the team leader and the team commander could go ahead and formulate a plan. Tactical medic is responsible for not only the health of the SWAT operators, but also for the health of any victims, any suspects that may be injured during this incident. They do provide medical aid to suspects. Yes, people are probably saying, I know they don't. I watch TV. Well, I'm telling you here is that I provided plenty of medical treatment as a SWAT medic to suspects, and I know, well, we both know our current team TAC med, and he does as well. If we talk about weapons, oh my gosh, there is just a plethora of equipment. We have every less lethal option available to us. That includes pepper spray, that includes tasers, that includes a beanbag shotgun, it includes a 40 millimeter, what we call foam grenade, shoots a foam projectile to hit center mass to knock the wind out of you. You could be going in with some type of long rifle. For where we came from, that was the 6-hour MCX. That was the long rifle that we chose. However, the team leader that worked underneath my command, he used to take in the M4 Benelli. Some operators sometimes didn't take in a rifle because they had a certain mission, so they just had their sidearm with them. That's a whole other thing, but that's mission dependent. Just various different things. And then gas, and this is where the gas guy comes in. I bombardier, I don't, whatever you guys are called. Hot gas is that thing where it's exactly what it sounds. It's hot. It can actually catch fire if it's not put in the right location because it just burns so hot. You throw this hot gas in and it gets next to some type of fabric, it could actually start a fire. So we have to be very careful with that.
Regarding flashbangs, since you say they're not used anymore, why is it that we don't use those anymore?
All right, so there's a back history to this. Some SWAT team back east someplace, it's always back east, by the way.
Unfortunately. Ruins
where,
it for everyone else.
Yeah. They threw a flashbang, it ended up into a crib, and it injured an infant. And it got the SWAT community really rethinking the utilization of flashbangs. We were already scaling back flashbangs because the days of us sneaking up wearing balaclavas and moving like real quietly and all that type of stuff. I don't know.
We don't use those at all.
I don't know what this means, but okay. You gotta love Hollywood because it's like,
people think it's really like the movies, and I promise you, it's not at all. And I always love when we go out on, patrol calls where we have SWAT call-outs and people come out and, oh, well, I thought it was going to be like this movie or that movie.
99.9% of the time, the bad guys know we're there because we want them to know we're there.
Yeah.
We want them to see this show of force, see this perimeter, see these armored vehicles, see these guys running around in tactical gear in hopes that they're going to surrender. There are still missions of cover of darkness, but for the most part, we let them know we're there, and that's the reason why we don't use flashbangs all that much anymore.
Yeah. Can you talk about the Bearcat and how that's also a tool to utilize?
See, great minds think alike. It's made by Lenco Industries. They're in Massachusetts. I got a chance to tour their facility. This is a vehicle that's made for civilian law enforcement. It's not a military vehicle. It's not a tank. It's an armored vehicle. It's built on a Ford chassis. They narrow it down so it can't tip over. It's made with like double-plated steel, so it's bullet resistant. The glass is bullet resistant, and it's designed to, as you know, to be able to get us into locations, to provide us cover. But it's a very expensive tool. And if you're a department fortunate enough to have the money to buy a Bearcat, that's pretty awesome.
I think one of the last incidents was a shooting where we had to go assist, and it was that Bearcat was utilized, and it was able to give our officers protection and cover from, handgun rounds such as a 9mm or 40mm rounds.
You got to realize that the United States is becoming more and more violent. There are more and more mass shootings. There will be another terrorist attack. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And these are the reasons why law enforcement now needs more equipment that mimics military equipment, because people will say, well, just call SWAT. Well, unfortunately, it could take up to 45 minutes for the entire team to show up and be ready to go. Well, the incident could be over in that time, so that's why patrol officers have to be trained and have to have this equipment and this specialized equipment, especially rifle-rated vests, rifle-rated helmets, and actually have a rifle because they may have to neutralize the incident. Think the movie Heat with Al Pacino. That's kind of what we're up against these days. SWAT may get there and it's already too late. It's already over.
Which has happened, but at a patrol, quite a few times. I know our SWAT team has a canine officer, but that is a tool that unfortunately might be going away. But what can you talk about as far as the canine officer and their duties, especially on the SWAT team?
Canines are utilized on SWAT, and they're utilized for various different things. Number one, they're great for sniffing out a suspect, so we actually can send them forward because, believe it or not, there is no Optawand, okay? Optawand does not exist, so if you want to play those games the way you're supposed to, no Optawand. We utilize the dog as an Optawand. They can sniff out suspects. We can do a guard and bark, letting us know that there's a suspect in that room. And then last is the actual apprehension. I know people are going to be upset about this, but they are a tool. And unfortunately, sometimes they get hurt and get killed, but they are there to preserve life, not only of police officers, but of suspects. And yes, they may bite a suspect and cause injury, but it's a lot better if that happens. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's a lot better that happens opposed to us going in and having to get into a shooting and then we shoot. I don't like using the word neutralize because let's just call it what it is. You get into a shooting, you shoot the suspect, and they subsequently die. And it will be a sad day if we see canines being taken away from law enforcement, because I think that will result in more uses of force and more people being hurt on both the law enforcement side as well as the suspects.
Well, because you and I have both seen that, canine bites, as much damage as they can do, they don't always cause severe damage. So, we're able to take the suspects to get medical treatment, and then we're able to take them back to our jail to get them booked. And, usually they have no complications or problems. I promise we're dog people, so this is a...
All right, I have a question before we go. So I did 22 years on SWAT. Have you thought about joining the SWAT team?
You kind of left big shoes to fill, so I feel like it's an automatic I have to, but me being an EMT and having the background as an EMT is something that I've always wanted to follow in your footsteps as a SWAT medic. Especially, I always thought it would be cool to be a SWAT medic, and in the movies you see people get dragged out and it's all cool and tactical, and while it can be, I always thought it would be really cool to kind of be able to give medical attention and stuff like that. I'm a fan of the medical field. I mean, granted, I love being a cop and all the things that come with it, but we're the first people to calls. We're the first people to help other people, and having that experience has been a huge help. I've been able to do CPR on people, back blows on infants, stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of that experience, especially on the SWAT team, would be great because obviously you get into a lot of dangerous situations. And everyone wants to be firefighters, but in reality, we get to calls first. Yeah. So we get to do a lot more. No offense to you firefighters out there. I know a lot of people might take offense to that. But, we get to calls first, and it's one of the cooler things. Granted, if we go to a fire, if it's a pretty big fire, a fire extinguisher is not going to work. So, then we need the fire department. But, medical calls and stuff, I think I've always enjoyed it just from being an EMT. So I feel like to carry that into being a SWAT medic, and obviously having both of those experiences to take out on patrol, working patrol, would be pretty awesome. Cool. But unfortunately, you left very big shoes to fill. So,
well, before my head gets any bigger, I think that's it for us today. Remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon for instant notification. And if you want to see more of me and maybe one day her, well, just head on over to YouTube, search for Chris the Cop, and you can watch more stuff. Actually, not like this, but me gaming. So there you go.
And again, go make sure you go follow Shift Fire on all their social media platforms, as well as Chris the Cop here. I've watched a couple of his videos, and they're all right. They're okay. They're okay. So make sure you go follow him.